There's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and we really are being challenged to stay in our spiritual perspective and not get caught up in the fear. This is also a huge opportunity for the transformation of our planet and of humans. I think we can evolve through this.
It's every level, isn't it? I mean, even this whole idea of being at home has so many levels to it. Okay, the premise that's been given to us is the virus, but in fact, to sit at home, like we talked about in the last episode, it gives people the chance to sort of sit and really look at their lives. Are they doing what they want to be doing? And in terms of work, are they living with the people that they really want to live with? Are they looking after their bodies and their minds? Like, is there another way that they could do it, which is better, which will bring them more peace and happiness? I find when I get on a plane and go out of the city, it's a really good time to look back at life and go, okay, that was my life. I used to go round and round in circles in my little, go to the shops and go to the petrol station. Is that the picture that I want? And that's the best time to do it, when you're either off the ground in a plane or when you're in another city. But now that we have got this time enforced on us in the home, we can do a similar thing. And there'll be a lot that we won't want to make the same when we get back out again.
I agree. Well, I watched part of David Wilcox's Q&A question today. I didn't make it through the whole thing. But he was talking about some reports, some things he'd read that suggest or even prove that evolution can happen very quickly, physical evolution. And he talked about a particular lizard that lived on an island that was a desert island, so it had very little vegetation, but a lot of insects, and they were adapted to eating insects, which evidently you crunch and they're pretty digestible. And they moved them to another island, or some of them to another island that had fewer insects but a lot of plants. And within 5 generations, they had physically adapted. They had changed, so they were bigger, they had stronger jaw muscles, more ability to crush up the plants. Plus, they literally created a new organ in their body, like a duodenum, where you could store the green matter and ferment it like cows do.
Right.
So that they could actually get the nutrition from it in 5 generations. And also, he talked about a particular bacteria that could not digest lactose, not a lactobacteria, so it's a different type. But they took this bacteria and put it in a lactose environment, but didn't have anything else to eat. That 1 generation adapted to being able to eat it. Right. So you go through this stress. You're in this stressful environment where your life is not the same. The reality is not the same. You're not sure what's going to happen. And boom, physical evolution. Wow. I think that's exciting.
It is. And it kind of reminds me of 100 Monkey principle in terms of learning.
Exactly.
Right. So if you haven't heard of 100 Monkey before, it's a real experiment that they had done on islands where they were looking at monkeys on archipelago, lots of different little islands where they weren't necessarily talking to each other, each group of monkeys on their own individual islands, so that they could experiment in terms of what they could learn. And they found that these monkeys loved sweet potato and would put them in the sand. And they would struggle. They loved the taste of it, but it was covered in sand and struggled with it. Then a young one figured out that if you take it down to the water and wash the sand off, then you can eat it without sand. So they watched to see what would happen. They were gauging the progress on each of these places. And the young ones would teach the older ones. And then eventually it just got to the single day when they came back to look at the islands, and every single monkey on every island had learnt it. It's not like the young ones picked it up on other islands. Everybody suddenly, a big aha moment. And I know that's in terms of learning. You're talking about physical evolution as well, but maybe it's all connected together, that we, in an extreme situation, can suddenly adapt or learn or pick up an aha moment very, very quickly, it is exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. The bottom line is, this audience, you guys who watch this are not the ones who are locked on to the mainstream media, panicking about the deaths and the viruses and the hospitals are full, when there's so many videos around the world of them being completely empty and all of this stuff. That's not you, but there's, say, a fourth, that's a 3D. So 4D could be like what the Q stuff is, which is, you know, you're diving down that rabbit hole, and you're finding answers for things, and you're discovering about stuff you didn't know before. And, you know, like, because of the Google no longer being under control, a whole lot of people were looking up adrenochrome. You know, and that's like, whoa, what a big awakening that is. And that's a level, and that's mass disclosure, and that's an important part. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. But we also want you to remember, like, the 5D, because that's where we're going. That's the evolution. That's what this opportunity is. And then from that point of view, it's like evolution. We are down with the negative forces not having the ability to do false flag facts and all this other stuff. There's also spiritually this opening energetically that allows for more, say, downloads of information, of cosmic information, you know, the DNA upgrades, all of that.
It's also the sixth sense level as well, right? Your clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairsentience, clairaudience, to be able to pick up your intuition through many different ways. I'm very sure that's going to be a major part of it. And once that starts, the 100 monkey principle, where suddenly we all are a whole lot more psychic and we can see absolutely what's going on, which is painful. I know for me, that was a big thing, to try and learn to accept the deception, you know? The deception is one of the hardest things to accept. So
there's a famous quote that it's easier to deceive the people than to convince them they've been deceived.
Yeah, it's hard, it's horrible. But if we can adapt quickly then too, and I think that's going to be really important, to be able to take in this new information, and instead of going absolutely nuts and screaming and setting your car on fire or wanting to blame people, go out and riot and burn down the government buildings or the pharmaceutical industry or whatever, to be able to go, okay, this is how it was. What do we want from here forward? Right, okay, they've told us, which means they already know who the culprits are. So we don't need to go out there and attack the culprits. It's done. So what do we want from here forward? And turn your focus towards that, away from the violence and the chaos, and towards what it is that you want.
Right before we started recording, Annabelle and I tuned into our team, our spiritual support team. And we're like, you know, what's important for us to know? And got this great sense of just relief. It's like, oh, thank goodness. And in my mind's eye, I saw like a bunch of generals and other people of power sitting around smiling, congratulations, you know, it was done. And we're like, well, what's done? And we sort of worked it out, sort of bounced it back and forth and went, oh, there's where it is. And I think what has happened is that a lot of the people who've been trafficked, you know, there's been a huge, you know, we've got the wall in the United States here, and you can see articles coming out about how many traffickers have been imprisoned recently and how many people have been saved. And this tunnel from Mexico into the US has been tearing down, and they keep building them, but we keep tearing them down, right? We're filling them up. So the sense we got was that all of these people who had been in traffic situations, that a whole lot of them through some type of military action, which may be why the National Guard's out, or part of it, had been rescued. And that the ships, the Mercy and the Comfort, were actually places not where they're going to put people who are sick without COVID because they don't want to overwhelm the hospitals because the hospitals are empty, but they're actually taking people who have been trafficked probably their whole lives, a lot of them, and taking them somewhere where they will be healed physically and emotionally. They know they're safe. You know, the thing that happens with that environment is they're told, I've read lots of people who come out of it say this, you know, they're told that you can't get away. You get around here, we'll get you back. You've got people that are part of our cult everywhere, and we'll find you and you'll never get away. And how is it, you know, like, so if you you're out in a ship, nobody can come get you. You're safe here. And that's the feeling I got, right? You had the same same sense with it.
A lot of tenderness, and so not prisoners either. That was another possibility that people were saying, if there are going to be mass arrests, that they knock out our internet for a few days so that we can't go, oh my God, look over here, and give the show away. that they want to be able to arrest a whole lot of people, that it's possible that they were going to put prisoners on these ships and take them to Guantanamo Bay, which is what those ships have been used for in the past. But it didn't feel like that right now. It felt like tenderness, softness.
And, their names are kind of speaking. The names of the ships are not,
well,
lock them up.
I know, but in the past they have taken people to Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
So
I think the idea also is that so many things had to be done before the arrest could happen. You had to clean out the Department of Justice and all those other departments. You had to also, think about it, you want to rescue the people, because if they start doing arrests, I'm sure the cabal will threaten to start just killing people.
Yes.
Yes. So you're locked in, you're not going to group things where they can have a mass shooter, all this stuff. But there's a whole, unfortunately, a huge population that are these trafficked people that they needed to get protected before they could start doing the arrests. So I think we're going to get through this. They're talking about another month. So hopefully y'all got some things in stock.
It's interesting.
And just hanker off at home.
Like, Trump was talking about, Easter Friday is Good Friday is going to be something really amazing. And then he said something about, I didn't hear exactly where it was, but I got the impression he'd said we're 3 weeks behind schedule. And I'm like, oh, okay. So maybe that's what takes it to the end of April. We don't know. But it's very vague, and it's deliberately vague, because you don't want to tell people, hey, guess what? We're going to knock on your door on Tuesday and arrest you. So just, put a clean pair of underwear on. It's not going to be like that. It'll be all very sudden. Come on. Think up my own way of describing it.
So I know a lot of people hate Trump. And I still, I came from a I hate Trump point of view, but if what, for instance, David Wilcox says, he's gotten briefings of, as well as other people, that there was originally intended to be a military coup, which would have been really intense and dramatic. But then they tried Plan B, which is to find somebody and put him in as president. And they had to find somebody, the alliance, which is the White Hats, the good guys. They don't have a whole lot of money. So they had to find somebody who could finance their own campaign, who can take all the slings and arrows and darts and accusations and hatred from most of the population. Who has a big enough ego to be the most hated person on the planet and keep functioning?
How can you do that? Look at Martin Luther King. He died early, and they said when they did an autopsy that his heart was 20 years older than his body. It was the incredible amount of stress and hatred that he had to deal with. How on earth do you support a body like Trump's to cope with all that? Even, if for you and me being, little people in the populace, where if there's one person that really hates you, you get it in the back. You do. Energetically, you get it kicked in the back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a bunch of witch covens. You see a Hollywood idiots going, oh, we're coming together. We're going to do a
witchy bad spell on it.
We're going to cast spells on him and stuff. And it's really, they put it out there and people go, ha, 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 that's funny. But it's real stuff. They really, he's got to have a lot of people also really powerfully, energetically protecting him. And maybe that's some of the extraterrestrial participants in the alliance that are, they have the spiritual strength or the technology to protect him. Because otherwise, there've been many, many attempts on his life already, and they've managed to keep him alive. Plus, they've nationalized Federal Reserve into the Treasury.
Now, this is very interesting.
Nobody even talks about it.
No, why is that? First of all, I thought, is this real? Is it true? Because nobody has said anything about it. I'll put things up on social media and it'll get deleted. Or I'll put it on my own page and no one will see it unless they actually go and visit. So that's shadow banning, right? Mm-hmm. They deliberately make sure that nobody finds out about it. So if you haven't heard, the Federal Reserve has merged, kind of. They've done this huge swap with the US government, which essentially means that the US government is taking over the Federal Reserve. They will take it back as they should have had in the first place. It's had 100 years of running riot and doing its own thing, and it has had most of the Western world by the balls. They've had too long out there doing whatever they want to do, printing money based on nothing. So if the US government takes it back, I believe they will be going back to gold-backed currency, which is
That's
why he spent the
what they're
last 3
saying.
years collecting all the gold back into America that had been missing and gone out of the country and stored elsewhere, bring it all back again. And then once you've got a gold-backed dollar based on the amount of gold that he's got, you've got a very different currency. It also means inland revenue will change. You may end up with no tax. The only tax you'll be paying is your sales tax. And because everybody pays it, including companies, then it'll be a much fairer system. You've got big companies at the moment, enormous companies, the technocrats like Apple and Google and Facebook, that just shunt their money from one country to the other so they never pay tax. At the moment, apparently, they're all storing it in Ireland because Ireland has offered them 1% tax to keep all their money there. So all of that will eventually change, and we'll end up with everybody paying just sales tax, and that's more than enough money for our infrastructures, our hospitals, our schools, our police, our roads, everything that a government would normally cover in their expenses.
And if you're wondering if that's enough to cover it, why haven't we been doing that? Where they always say we don't have enough money, we need to do more bonds and increase tax and do this and that. Secret space program, deep underground military bases, all this stuff has just been sucking our money out of our system, and that's where it's been going. We're not all supposed to be this broke, living paycheck to paycheck.
No,
it doesn't
I can
make
understand
sense.
that in America. In America, that's the case. I don't know how much of that money is coming out of Australia and doing the same. It almost felt like, these taxes and more taxes and more taxes and more rules and limitations was more designed to keep us in a low vibe. That's what it felt like to me. It was irrelevant as to where the money went. It was designed to keep us in a low vibe, because if you're in need and then you feel like you are not worth anything, right? Because we often attach our value to our assets, that if we think we're worth little, then it's very hard to put your hand out and ask for more. And there's plenty of loud people in the media that will bash you for how dare you ask for anything at all. And yet we can't get work, and yet the unemployment benefit won't cover your rent. That all of these things are designed to knock you down so that you will behave, obey, do what you have to do.
All of these things are going away. I think, we've got, Trump was saying something about a rough week or a rough couple of weeks. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Da, da, da. Just think of it that way. It's a few weeks out of your life where you're staying home and puttering in your garden and catching up on Netflix. It's like reading a book, hanging out with your family,
researching,
cuddling your pet. Yeah, researching.
Learning
all
about
those
Operation Paperclip.
All of those things.
Great lecture. I'll put the link in. It was a great lecture yesterday of a lady who's done a lot more research on Operation Paperclip. She had a lot more detail.
Wow, interesting.
That was interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So the only thing I want to sort of give a heads up on is there's been talk for a long time from a multitude of sources about there being 3 days of darkness or 10 days of darkness, and it looks like the sun isn't going to go dark. It looks like what's going to happen is telephones and internet will go down. So your phone will be useful for calling 911 and for receiving emergency broadcast messages. The internet will probably go really, really slow. And that's not forever. It could be 3 days is what they're looking at. We're not sure when. It depends when all these other things are happening. But be ready for that. So when it does happen, know that it's not the end of the world. It isn't the Nazis taking over. It's not that. It's going to be okay, and just get a physical book to read. Or what I did was I downloaded a bunch from the library, so I as well as my physical books. So just in case it is 10 days, I've got lots of reading.
Yes, and I've got all my kids' old school books that I can do drawings in. So I do a drawing of the new Earth and or a facet of it, of what life will be like and how I can get together with my friends and, what things we like when we greet each other and what we might eat. And then I write it all on the right-hand side. So these ideas are the way to very powerfully add to the energy of what you want to manifest in the new world.
Yeah. Focus on what we are creating and manifesting. Do not focus on what's going away. That's really important.
Yeah, because you do.
All right.
Energy. Yeah.
And dreams. Start a dream journal.
Yeah, write them down. See what they mean to you. because they're all different for different people. You don't, like, I've bought books before about what dreams mean, and very few of them have made a lot of sense as to what they mean to me. One thing that worked really well for me was many dreams about a house that would be my house in the dream. It's not necessarily the one I'm living in right now, or ones that I've lived in the past, but a house. And that is meant to be yourself, your body. So whether you're walking up the stairs, you're talking about the higher realms of yourself, or down in the basement is the lower chakras sort of things. Whether people are bashed, like I had so many dreams of people looking in the windows, or I could hear they were going to come through the door, and there's no lock on the door, and there's they pull the curtains and they fall down, and this happened over and over again, and it was, the theme of it came down to me being, I have to be bold about who I actually am and not try and hide anymore.
That's a good one.
Yeah. But apart from that, apart from the house one, most of the time I look in a book of dream dictionary or whatever and go, no, that doesn't make sense at all. So it has to make sense to you as to what that might mean.
Yeah. And another way to find that out is, like, what are the emotions? You know, when I write down dreams, I write down theme, I write the story, the theme, the characters, and the emotions in the dream. And then you can start to see patterns.
Absolutely.
There's lots of stuff we can be doing while we're not working. And shopping. Good God.
Oh, I go and I buy more food and I bring it back going, I promise I won't buy any more food. I have no food. Don't buy any more food.
Well, you know, think of how many people are
do
shopping in order to avoid dealing with their stuff.
Yeah, that's right, retail therapy. But also the other advice I was given, and I'm not officially giving this as advice because we are not financial people, but the advice was to keep your money for food, and everybody else can wait. Seriously, with banks. I thought that was really interesting advice. I'm not giving it, I'm just saying it was very interesting. Nobody is going to be able to throw you out of your house right now while all of this is going on, so all rent and mortgage can wait. Credit cards, you can apply online and say, can't do it, sorry, and they've got to be able to support you. They have to.
Yeah, good idea. Whether
they cancel the interest or while you're waiting or whatever. So that's interesting. We'll leave it.
Yes. All right. Well, good times ahead. We just have to get through this.
Yeah. Hang in there. Bye.
Bye.